welcome to Film Logic, a movie podcast about the movies of yesterday, today, and tomorrow, with every film fandom in between. We're part of the Retro Logic family of podcasts, and I am with my good buddy Adam. Adam, are you there?
What's going on, Mike?
Oh, just sitting here wondering about what you've been watching.
Oh, well, Michael, I had the pleasure of watching Venom 3 with my good buddy and co-host.
Amazing. What a segue.
Yeah.
I love it. Yes, we saw Venom 3, The Last Dance. We're not blowing smoke. We talked about it for at least 2 episodes and we pulled the trigger. We saw the movie.
Yeah.
And, I just really need to de-stress on it, depressurize. What's that word when you talk about your feelings? And
Debrief?
Debrief. I need to debrief on it. That's a good word.
Mm.
So, for anyone who's been living in a cave, Venom 3, The Last Dance, part of a trilogy about Venom that doesn't have Topher Grace in it, as Tom Hardy, as the beloved Venom and the voice of Venom.
Mm.
And this is the finale, the last one, though the movie promised the heck out of sequels, so we're not really sure how it could be the last one, but just right off the bat, Adam, what did you think you were going to get into? Like 1 minute before you actually saw the movie?
I mean, I gotta say my expectations were pretty low. I wasn't expecting, anything incredible.
Yeah.
But, I would say that even my expectations, as low as they weren't met.
Yeah. That kind of explains it. I go into these non-Marvel movies, and I think I'm going to be cleverly treated with a smart script that it plays chess with my brain. I always go into that. Like recently I saw the Agatha finale. And if you haven't seen it yet, it plays with your mind. It's a slow burn all the way through. And it's I can't believe that happened. So that's my recommend. But knowing that's like a Sony Venom movie, I know it's going to be heavy-handed data dumping with okay to good CGI. And I think all those needs were met. Yeah.
Yeah. For me, it was just it just felt so boring and paint by numbers.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, there were maybe 2 or 3 times during the movie I leaned over and told you what was gonna happen next. And it happened exactly like how I said it. And it was just it was so safe and it was so boring. And for something that was supposed to be like the last ride, the last dance, it just, I don't know, it didn't even achieve the finality of that, right? Like it was spoilers, but it didn't even feel like that it lived up to its own namesake.
Right. There's I think part of it for me is I've never really liked the Venom series to begin with. Because,
same.
We were together when we saw the first one.
Correct.
We were sitting and watching it, and I think that's when I remarked to you is he just going to be like just kind of a whiny ADHD toddler? Is that the Venom I'm seeing? Are we seeing the right Venom?
Right.
And that was the decision they went with,
Yeah.
Like in the original Spider-Man, in the original comics since his birth, Venom has been as scary as a xenomorph. But in this one, he's, I don't know, a cookie monster-ish?
That's a good description.
Yeah. So he's just like a big, dumb cookie monster, but instead of cookies, he talks about eating brains.
Right.
And so that already crippled any love I could have. Though I will say the second one was probably my favorite.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, basically when you're starting off with that, the basis of them just talking over each other and like everything Tom Hardy says, I like fruit, I don't like fruit.
Right.
We should go over here. We shouldn't go over there. It's just that's their whole relationship. Like I say A, no, I say B.
Right.
Yes.
And even like the core of, what Sony is trying to get across is what makes Venom different than these other superhero movies is that he's supposed to be the lethal protector, right?
Yeah.
Like he'll do things that no other superhero does except for Deadpool and Wolverine and Thor and
And
Hulk
Punisher.
and Captain America and all these all these other characters that are heroes also
Mhm.
use lethal force. I don't know if you guys seen Infinity War, but yeah, all these characters use just as much lethal force as the lethal protector, and
Yeah.
to the point that even Spider-Man, right, the iconic do-gooder,
Yeah.
he uses he uses drones to kill a man. Like it's kind of like what makes Venom special, and he's just not. And I think beyond even just Venom as the character, I think maybe it's about time that we hung up the hat on anti-heroes, because they're frankly just not that interesting. And
Right.
they're so it feels like a trope that's just kind of played out.
Yeah.
And like I like the new one coming out, Craven. I'm just like, I don't care about this quote unquote neutral gray, character that kind of does things that he needs to do. And you're just like, that's not interesting.
Right, right. I mean, I didn't recognize the Venom. And
Yeah.
so I know everyone gushes about like, oh, the chemistry between Venom and Tom Hardy,
I didn't
which
get that either.
yeah, but like yeah, I can't see it. Like I enjoyed their shtick as in like I thought it was like, oh, they're playing off each other, that's cute, that's kind of fun. But but I think I enjoyed them just because I could care less about everyone else in that movie.
Yeah, they're so forgettable.
Right. And one of the theories is that Kelly Marcel, yeah, I think that's her name, is her first directing job. She wrote the first three movies. They rewarded her with a directing gig. There are signs, according to other reviews, that she wrote a much different script and that maybe it was a little too political. And it, because the underlying theme is that like the symbiotes are like illegal immigrants, and like the Imperium, which captures them, they're supposed to be ice, and that she was approached, and they're like, no, we're not going to lose our fans over this. Rewrite it, and that what we saw was the rewrite, which is why stories just kind of seemed just weird.
Yeah, that sounds way more interesting than what we got.
Right.
Like
So
it was, yeah,
yeah,
it was just again, like I can't remember the last time I've walked out of a movie and I was like, I don't really know what the plot was. There's
yeah,
no, like, the bad guys are just nameless, faceless aliens that kind of just were
yeah,
wood chippers. And
mhm,
there were, yeah, there
yeah.
was no real bad guy. There was no real conflict besides some MacGuffin that just happened to be inside of Venom.
Right.
And yeah, it
Which
was
you
just
don't even have to discover on your own. It's kind of just it's just like I have this MacGuffin and I want this MacGuffin.
right.
And yeah. So for those who like we got treated to a new Thanos, or at least that's what they're hoping for. Knull the Conqueror, who's tied to a tree for most of the movie and just kind of just gives exposition about how
Yeah,
angry and what he's going to do.
right.
And like I know they're hoping to like use him more until they have maybe their own Infinity War. Maybe they're gonna get everyone together, Craven, Morbius, Madam Web,
Yeah, but
ultimate team up against Knull.
half these people barely have powers, and Nola's supposed to be like this terrifying, right, like demigod.
Yeah,
And that was the other thing that like boggled my mind. It was just like, oh, all these symbiotes that were supposed to be super ultra strong kind of just get murdered. Like
right.
by like dogs, essentially, like
Yeah,
space dogs.
right.
So
And
it's
I
like,
mean that's the big
how is
disappointment.
right? And so like, how is Craven, who's supposed to be as strong as a rhinoceros, supposed to compete, right?
Right. And the thing is, where the movie's not predictable, it's unpredictable for all the right reasons. Like there's a reason like these tropes exist. Like when you see Null, you're like, oh, he's gonna get out of his prison and they're gonna have to push him back. And you're like, nope, unpredictable. He's not even a factor in this movie.
Right, right,
Just large Starship Trooper enemies. That
right.
is the big bad.
Right. Oh, there's a shadowy government agency. I bet they're gonna interfere in the plot somehow. Nope,
Yeah.
nothing.
yeah, oh, they're leading us towards this, MacGuffin. We're gonna find out that that's not even really, nope, that's the issue, and it's not really that big of a deal. Yeah.
Right.
So it's like another reviewer said that this, because the director's so new, they didn't know what they wanted to go for tonally. Like, did they want it to be a monster that eats heads? Did they want it to be a sweet, like, Eddie, you're going to become a father? Or one day, Eddie, you should become a father. Oh, I love you, Venom. Did they want to go for that tone? Did they want to go for, the metaphor of how you treat symbiotes is how we treat immigrants in this country? Like, and she didn't know which one she wanted, so you don't know how to feel at the end.
Yeah, totally agree. And yeah, it's kind of yeah, it's just disappointing. And I said online and said elsewhere, but probably one of the worst superhero things that I've seen this year. And I think I finally have come to terms with how I feel about Joker 2, and that at the very least, it tried to do something and it took risks. And it was like, whether you like it or not, like, it was very polarizing. But and you leave Venom, and you're like, you don't really feel anything. You're just like, I kind of just sat here for 2 hours, and
Yeah.
I got to see a giant goo alien dance with a nice older lady in a Vegas penthouse, and
Right. I
mhm.
kind of feel like she was trying to capture, like, I get what she was trying to do, the simplicity of, like, the Spider-Man Sam Raimi series, where, like, the simple moral is the big deal, it's not trying to be clever, it's not trying to be a smart plot that's making you guess. And I believe you can get that, but not with such heavy-handed choices. I think she was like forcing it. She was like, "Look, this is the plot. This is the moral. This is what's going to happen."
Right, but
Almost
I
to the
think that
point of
mhm,
contradicting like the whole other series.
yeah,
Like
right,
the cool thing is like symbiotes go into like people that are about to die in the end, and we have like this whole Mighty Morphin Power Rangers of different symbiotes. But isn't
right,
like the whole problem of the first movie is that like it's 1,000,000 to 1 chance that the symbiotes are gonna like getting with that person, and the person just ends up dying. So it felt
right.
kind of hollow that they didn't even mention like that's so far gone. They created that rule and they broke it.
Sure. And to go off your Sam Raimi example, like the key difference here is that, like, one, the characters are interesting, and two, the Spider-Man and each of the villains that he goes up against are foils and mirrors to his own internal problems.
Yep.
Right? Like, it's the first Spider-Man movie, of course, is just your classic Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, and yeah, just the opposing morality between the two, coupled with this, almost father-son relationship between Osborn and Parker, and none of the characters care about each other at all in this Venom movie, right? Like, they literally, all the characters had met each other within 72 hours of the movie happening, right?
Right.
They try to make you care, but it's just like, I don't know. There was no substance to the movie.
Right. One of the things that I thought was weird is the only way to make you care is to let a scene on for too long.
Yeah.
Like I finally understand the imagery when they're all. So if you haven't watched it, Venom, he and Tom Hardy are traveling across the west side of America to get to New York City because Tom Hardy's been framed for a murder, which he's very surprised, even though he directly says it at the end of the second one, "I've been framed for a murder."
Right.
So they're kind of sticking it down your throat. They're like, "This is what happened."
Right.
But yeah, they're trying to get to New York City to blackmail a judge to take them so that they don't get the charges to stick, which is kind
Right.
of the weirdest idea to come up with.
Right. Like, why does a New York City judge have jurisdiction in California?
Right. Yeah. And so they bring that up. Yeah. Like kind of as like we need an excuse to make this two guys traveling across America together story.
Right.
Yeah. And so, yeah. It's just so yeah, they meet up with like this hippie family that's like the dad's really into aliens, and for some reason he has a poster in his car of an ancient symbiote like bonding with a human, and it's called Narika, a word that the script made up. And so for some reason he just foreshadows the heck out of the whole like the whole story of the Venom and Tom Hardy angle, kind of like spoon fed to you. And then, just so you're worried, if not knowing the ending, they sing the ground control to Major Tom, the Ziggy Stardust. I think it's Ziggy who sings that, or his other persona, which is a song about something happening to a spaceship and a guy sacrificing his life to save others.
Right.
So, not to beat you over the head, but he might as well have sang like Venom control to Tom Hardy.
Yeah.
So everything just felt like forced. Like it had a big pink sign on it that says, "This is the moral. This is the direction we're going. This is the Chekhov's gun that we're going to bring in the third act."
Right. Yeah. So, overall, big thumbs down from me, but yeah, it was just it was just so paint by numbers, and it was somehow simultaneously like it needed 30 more minutes, but it felt 20 minutes too long.
Yes.
And not to beat a dead horse, but in comparison to like Joker 2, like where Joker 2 excelled was like in its production and its acting and its cinematography, and everything else kind of like falls by the wayside. And Venom, it feels like it had the exact opposite problem, where it's the writing and the plot were like serviceable. It was fine. It was boring but serviceable. But then everything else kind of just felt lackluster.
Right.
And like honestly, the last thing I'd want leaving a movie theater is to walk out and be, wow, I'm bored. And that's exactly kind of what it felt like.
It's so disappointing because I feel like any origin story with a monster like Venom kind of writes itself. Like you have to go out of your way to ruin Venom.
Right.
And Sony did that. Like they nailed it. They're like,
right.
I bet you can't ruin someone as cool as Venom. Hold my beer. I'm going to make him into emo Cookie Monster.
Right. And it wasn't even like, yeah, exactly. Like they took any opportunity to make him uncool, and they took it. And they somehow made him eating people's heads as like cute and adorable, and quirky. And yeah, it was just, I don't know. No, wasn't for me.
Well, can we talk about the ending? How like you and I, we were wondering, okay, so there has to be a main female in it because Michelle Williams, she's not in the third one. So we have Juno Temple, right?
Right.
Great actress, but her whole shtick is that she has a dream that her twin brother got electrocuted, and she got electrocuted, and he died. And she kind of goes around the movie saying, "Oh, I miss my brother."
Right.
I'm just doing this job because I miss him.
Right.
And they're like, okay, well, how's this going to pay off? Well, when the whole plant explodes, and she takes a bit of the symbiote, she has lightning powers. That's the payoff. That the lightning that got struck inside of her, giving her scars, somehow stuck around till she became an older adult and just decided to turn into electricity speed powers. And I recently learned that symbiote, like these are real comic book symbiotes. That one was Agony, and Agony's not even known for speed powers. So even when they're hand fed like a cool origin story like Agony, they're like, nope, we're gonna give it flash powers. So like that just felt so clumsy.
Right. And we don't even get a conclusion to that story. It literally, the last that we see of her is just her standing in the wake of the destruction of the final battle, and that's it. No finality, no conclusion, nothing.
Yeah. Well, the teaser. So at the end, after Tom Hardy in Venom. Spoiler. Venom gives up his life in the very convenient acid dumping machine. After he gives his life and killing all the monsters and ending the only way Knull can leave his portal. Knull, what does he say? He doesn't say, "Darn it, that sacrifice will destroy me forever." He's like, "Nope, I'm still escaping."
Right.
Thus nullifying any significance of what happened. So it's like, Venom, you didn't even need to die. I mean, I guess it was good that you killed all those guys with acid and yourself, but like,
Right.
the big bad is still coming for reasons. And the only teaser at the end is that a little piece of the purple symbiote that's part of Agony just kind of electrified in the background as credits rolled. You know, that was the after credits stinger.
Oh, I thought that was the bit of Venom who was captured earlier on in the movie when it splits itself.
You know, that's what people were saying, but like this one review, like, no. I know you think that's what happened, but it was actually the purple one. It was part of Juno Temple's symbiote. So, like, it would make sense to give a back door, even though Tom Hardy's like, I'm done with this series. I might come back to it later, but it's pretty much we're done.
I guess, but I don't know how that makes sense that it would be a new, like, why would they show us that if it was if it was the new one?
Either they're banking on the fact that this Agony character is going to be the next symbiote story, which, I mean, if you think about it, they didn't do anything with the second one, which was promised Toxin. That Stephen Graham, he plays the police inspector, and he dies, and then it shows he's going to become Toxin, and every comic nerds are supposed to be like, oh yeah, that's Toxin. Well, wouldn't you know it, Toxin's is in a glass cage for most of the third movie, with absolutely just like, his only thing is just to like talk about how bad the bad guy's going to be. And then when he does get a chance to fight, he like almost dies instantly. So if anything, if it's anything like the streak that we've just done, it's they're going to drop it entirely. If there's anything, Agony's going to be like in the background of a scene, and it's going to be just, it's not going to be, let me just put it this way, it's going to be as promised as the matchup between Venom and Spider-Man that was teased in the second one.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I just don't know enough about or care enough about the Venom extended universe.
Right. And nor did they
Yeah.
want you to know it. They just, like, they wanted you to, like, you had to do homework to know why anything was significant.
Yeah.
What would you say if you were given $50 million to make the next Venom movie?
Just 50 million? That's not
This
enough.
movie actually didn't have that high of a budget. I think it was $100 million, which sounds like a lot, but that's actually like chump change for superhero movies.
I mean, 50 million is chump change for a movie.
Right. Well, okay. You're given a modest amount of money, and you have to make the next Venom series. What direction do you go?
I don't know. I think that I scrap everything and and start from zero. And I wouldn't do a trilogy. I would do maybe a one-off with actually with Spider-Man.
That'd be nice.
And
It's tough. Your brain is so stuck on what you've seen. You
sure.
can't think of anything else.
Yeah, I don't know. I also just don't think that Venom is I just don't think that Venom is a compelling character by himself, and he's better off as a villain in a Spider-Man movie than a movie by himself.
Or
I just don't see it.
Or like a Rivals film where it builds up to the huge face-off at the end, and where both sides like have some noble reason, but have different ways of going about it, and kind of like Civil War, where it's like, damned if you do, damned if you don't. I think
I guess. I mean,
cool.
I don't know. I just don't like. I like Venom as a character more as a villain than I do as an anti-hero.
Right. I mean, that's what we grew up with. Like, he was such a pain in the butt for Spider-Man. He's like he's a big threat.
Right.
And I mean, what Venom say in the first movie, he's like, actually, on my planet, I'm kind of a loser. Oh, Venom, come on.
Yeah, yeah.
You can't just put yourself down like that. I mean, that's like taking xenomorphs and giving them like cat faces.
Right, right. And I don't know. I just don't. Yeah, I'm kind of just like tired of the trope of like trying to make trying to make these villains relatable. I think all the recent successful villains have been ones that have been like, oh, you're a bad guy and you do bad things, and
Yeah.
like that's why that's why these anti-heroes kind of just fall flat from, because
Yeah.
like at the end of the day you kind of do the same thing as the heroes, but you're not as interesting, and yeah, there's just no real reason to care.
Mm-hmm.
Like even with Deadpool, I think that's what made the first movie, I think, so much better than the other two. Just because it felt like by the second movie, you're just like, oh, Deadpool's just he's funny. He's not like morally like he might say or do questionable things, but he's still a good guy. And you're just like, that's not interesting enough. There are comic book runs where Deadpool is definitely very much so a bad guy, and
Right.
he's just so much more interesting. Like there's like a pretty recent comic book run where Deadpool is working with Colossus,
Mm-hmm.
and and so essentially how the comic book run goes is there's like this big huge attack on Earth. Everyone loses electricity except this area of Russia where Colossus is from, and so then Colossus kind of like goes back to his homeland and teams up with like Omega Red and some other bad guys, Sabretooth, and he teams up with Deadpool, and they're like protecting this little area, and Shield wants to investigate what's going on, so they send in Captain America and Wolverine and Winter Soldier. And as the comic book goes on, those guys get captured, and Deadpool like blows up and kills Captain America and Winter Soldier. And then the comic, it's a Wolverine comic, so then Wolverine then goes on to like get revenge on Sabretooth and Omega Red and Colossus, who's a bad guy in this one, and Deadpool. And it's just everything is just that comic book is just way more interesting than Deadpool being like, haha, I'm a fun guy, I'm also in the TVA, here's all my references. But it's like,
Mm-hmm.
oh no, like Deadpool is a bad guy and he does bad things, and it's just
Right.
weird that these movie companies keep trying to make these bad guys interesting.
Yeah.
And even just the fact of people being like trying to argue on Thanos's behalf, being like killing
Yeah.
half the universe. Oh, that was logical. It's like, why? Like, no.
Yeah.
Like these people are bad, and we shouldn't want to relate to them. And I think that a lot of these movies are getting kind of lost in this kind of like grayness, and that's why I
Right.
think I really appreciate when these movies are black and white, good and bad, and why some movies like the Batman are more successful than others, because I think there's a very clear motivations on all sides.
Yeah, I get it. They're trying to get away from that tropey like I'm Hitler, I'm the Allies,
Right.
and then you go through the motions of like, aha, I'm evil. No, you can't beat the little guy, and then they're trying to get away from that. But I think they just need to be like more deliberate. Stop making weird choices. A dream about lightning hitting your friend. And it might sound good on paper, but like someone should have said, "Hey, that's weird," and it's just like comes out of nowhere, and none of your characters have any idea outside of like their one trick, and
Yeah.
so like this shouldn't be hard for Sony. Like that's the frustrating part. It's like Sony should know. I mean, Sony's PlayStation 5 knows how to do it with like stunning results. So why isn't that translating over to a movie? If you can get a whole video game to make you cry and cheer for Spider-Man, but you can't get people to go behind like a $150 million Venom series. I mean, you're doing something to self-sabotage yourself.
I agree. Yeah,
But the
and
movie is the number one movie in America for the last 2 weeks. It took down Terrifier 3, which I don't even know how that got to be number one. And in China, it's the
it's
number
a
one
good movie.
it's the number one American movie to make the most money in China this year. So apparently, maybe we're the ones who don't get it, Adam.
I don't know about that. I don't think it's done very well critically or with audiences, in terms of like scoring.
Yeah.
And yeah, like I think it's pretty universally panned. It's got like a 4 out of 10 on IMDb,
Right.
and I
30%
mean,
on Rotten Tomatoes.
it did make 316 million at the box office, but it was projected. I mean, the last movie made 500 million, so
Right.
there's definitely a drop off there.
Hmm.
That 120 million doesn't include whatever they spent on marketing and stuff. So really, they probably broke even on how much they made.
Right. And they advertised that Venom horse to death. Like that was the promise. Like if there's any reason to see Venom is he turns into a horse. Forget the plot. He turns into a horse. And then I think the credits were here's some other animals he could have turned into, which is the
Mm.
strangest credits because him turning into animals wasn't really that big of a deal in this movie. But here's a credit scene where he could turn into a kangaroo, a fish, an octopus. Oh,
Right.
it's like 5 different movies were being made.
Yeah, I don't know. I also think that people are over analyzing it too.
Hmm.
People being like, "Oh, why is it so bad? Why did it fail? What was the reason? What was the reason?" And the reason is that it's just a bad movie. like it's
Intrinsically.
not it's just not good. And I don't think it's more complicated than that.
Well, like I don't know. I'm just scratching my head because like these are underhand pitches to Sony involving well-established characters.
Mm.
And it's like how could you not get home runs on these? I mean, I've never made a movie, so I don't know. But my dreams about these characters are amazing, and I think you'd enjoy them too. So if I can at least dream cool things about these guys,
Mm.
it shouldn't be that hard for you and all your college graduates to get it done.
And I do think that there comes a point of diminishing returns, because like these aren't original characters. So off the bat, you're dealing an uphill battle with adaptations, and you're dealing with
Hmm.
like pretty much all of these directors and writers aren't creating fresh stories.
Yeah,
So they have to take these characters and stories that aren't their own and try to create something out of it.
yeah.
And
I just feel like every production studio has like this exec at the top that's literally looking over the writer's shoulder and like he hasn't read a comic book in his life, but someone told him that he could be good at movies and that like each studio has one of these guys. I don't know.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
I will say what I like because I don't like just ripping a movie to shreds. The most enjoyable characters were Tom Hardy and Venom. Trying to figure stuff out. They're both likable people on their own. Once you get the fact that it's not the Venom you grew up with. So I will say I was relieved when it went off those no name characters, and it's like finally people I care about.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. I don't know. I think I fully have bought into superhero fatigue, and yeah, I mean, I have yet to be shown something in the last couple of years that will make me change my mind. And I
Right.
think that's why projects like Joker 2 stand out more to me than Venom, because
Hmm.
yeah, sure, maybe Joker 3 might not it might not perfectly follow the outline to the Hush storyline, right, of
Right.
Batman, but at least it's original, at least it's different, at least it's new, and it took a shot at doing something original and brave.
Hmm.
And I think the projects that have done that have been really good, like Agatha,
Yeah.
like like the Batman, where it's an original twist, the Penguin, and I think that's where studios are going to find success, as opposed to just trying to do these rehashes of tired storylines.
Yeah. I mean, it's just another example of the fatigue being felt. I mean, we always talk about these movies, they make money and the money proves that people want a sequel. But, I'm wondering if, like, after the movie, you said you can either let the theater keep your money, or if you really hated it, you could have some of it back. How many people would say, oh, I want some of it back? I don't think Venom would be nearly as profitable.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's what a world we live in where $316 million made doesn't turn a profit, but they had to hit 400 to 500 million to make a profit on this movie, so they didn't even they didn't even make money on this.
Mm-hmm. Well, as long as Tom Hardy got paid, that's all that matters.
Sure.
And Andy Serkis, because we want him to thrive. Well, anyways, I think we can safely say it's an unrecommend.
Yeah.
If you were into the Venom series and you got this far, nothing we say is going to deter you because you need that closure. But if you agree with us, great. Come onto our Discord, Retrologic Discord. Come talk about us. Tell us what you thought about the movie. Tell us what disappointed you. Tell us why it's the best Tom Hardy movie you've ever seen, if that's what is so bold of you to do.
If I'm sorry, if you say that, I will not respect your opinion.
So I'll at least hear you out.
I won't.
I just want to hear your reason.
Let me say that the best Tom Hardy movie. That's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just curious to know why you would think that.
That's nuts.
I know. He was Bane. We get it.
It's not even that. He was in Mad Max
That too. All right. Okay.
and Inception and Dunkirk.
Yes. Right. Oh, fine. Okay. He's pretty good at movies. We get it.
All right.
Mm-hmm. But if you think that's a bad movie, our next episode, we're going to be looking at the movie Meth Gator, and a brand new niche episode where we look at Tubi movies that are B level, maybe even C level, and they all gravitate towards Tubi because Tubi accepts almost anything that has a publish button. And we're going to be talking about it with our special guest, Ivy Coleman. So stick around for that. Well, thank you for joining us. Please like, subscribe, even if you didn't like our opinions, which are usually correct. Tell us that you love listening to us. Tell your friends about it. We love having you here, and we're always open for a talk. So please share your fandom and your love. So, Adam, any closing thoughts?
Yeah, Tom Hardy was also in Black Hawk Down.
Yeah. As a minor role. I don't know.
It was like one of his first roles. Anyways, Tom Hardy's great. We love him.
Yes.
Keep going to the theater, enjoy movies, and I would love to talk to you about it on Discord.
All right. Well, thank you. And I've been Mike.
I'm Adam.
And thank you for listening to Film Logic. Goodbye.